Corey Poirier, and excited to be back with another version of our Facebook Lives talking about the brand new book and talking to people who shared some amazing insight in the book, trying to dive into the quote or insight they shared. My whole goal with the book is to prove that one insight could change a life, and this will be no exception. And the fact that you can have a 30-minute or 25-minute conversation all spawned from one quote, to me, backs that up. So, Anthony Trucks, really excited to have you here today. I mentioned that I got the little sunlight thing going, but I think that's all good. People can still see me. Anthony, I think the best starting point would be for our viewers or listeners who are discovering you for the very first time. Maybe I'll get you to give us a little bit of a backstory or tell us a little bit about your journey for those viewers and listeners.
Yeah, man, by all means. Well, I became an entrepreneur at 3 years old. It's one of those odd things that I realized for me in life, it's actually been something that's legitimately like how my life began. It's more of an emotional thing. So my first memory of life was my mom giving me and my three siblings into foster care. And so I pretty much was just kicked out of the house. Like my mom pretty much said, I don't love you. And it's kind of a weird feeling. But at that moment, you feel like these levels of not being good enough, being scared, not knowing what tomorrow brings, and feeling pretty much like you're on an island, which is literally the first feeling you feel as an entrepreneur. And for me, the reason that's it's dear and like near and dear to my heart is that aspect is that's the kind of person that changes the world. And so the beginning of my life kind of started crazy. And I went from there and progressed on to deal with a lot of crazy foster homes where I dealt with like beatings and starvation and torture and a lot of weird things from some bad people. And it progressed me on to life to where I was like really angry. I was shut down. This is all before the age of 6 years old. But at 6 years old, I was put into a family, which is my family now. And the unique part is I'm the only black person in an all white family, except for my now brother-in-law. But I wasn't adopted until I was 14. So I dealt with a lot of just kind of instability over my lifetime. And so for me, it's like been a lot of weird, like just craziness I've been kind of navigating through. And so at 14, I got adopted. Got to do something that most people take for granted, but I got to play football. And it was a huge outlet for me. But I got to this kind of level where I know a lot of, people who want to create their own things get to. And there's something that I love that I wasn't doing well. So I found a way to give up on it. And that's what happened. Like in football, I loved this thing, but I wasn't doing well at it. I pretty much sucked. So I was trying to find a way to chalk it up. And thankfully, something happened that was a complete shift. And I was sitting in an English class with these two girls sitting next to me. They had no idea I was listening to them. And one girl says to the other girl, well, the reason I'm so bad is because I'm in foster care. And it was this huge shift for me that was like, gosh, I don't want to be saying that. Like, is that the excuse I'm going to give when I'm, a bad husband, a bad father, a drain of society? Statistically, if you go to any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are former foster kids. Like 1% of foster kids ever graduate college, like all these numerics that just aren't very good for me. And what ended up happening is I had a decision to be great and I switched it. And then from there, I progressed on to go back and do something that I think is incredibly necessary for anybody who want to succeed at something in life is you have to put in a crazy amount of work before you know you'll be successful. That's it. And that thing was this one like nugget that I learned from football. And what it was, I went the off season and I figured if I'm going to be great, I got to be great by putting in the work to get there. It's not going to happen accidentally. So I started like lifting every weight I could. I ran every route I could. And I came back the next year an animal. I was faster, I was stronger, I was meaner, I was more successful. And what I realized was you can actually take these skill sets that you learn in sports or in any part of your life, these intangibles, and apply them to your life. And when you do so, like you can actually change things. So what I realized is if I can be great in football from the work, can I do that in life? And I did, and it progressed beyond to get a college football scholarship. I played in the NFL. I opened a 10,000 square foot training facility. I'm now a consultant for hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Like I coach and teach and create programs. I've created online courses. I now coach people to help create their own online businesses. And I'm a person that tries to give back in a way that was given to me by my foster parents. And my parents gave me something that was not there in the beginning, which was just unconditional love to see me push into the next levels. And so now I realize that I am who I am because of how they impacted me, not even being related. So my big drive in life is to impact those who impact, which is everybody, whether it's a mom impacting her son or you impact the people that you work with or the people that I work with. And the way that I like to impact is by teaching other people how to make an impact by creating something that comes from their heart or from their mind and putting it into the world so somebody else can be touched by it.
Wow, Anthony, so many directions we could go from there. One thing I wanted to add as well, which I think is so cool, and a lot of people wouldn't know, is that you also were recently on American Ninja Warrior, which is another pretty big deal, I think.
Yeah, man, it was a cool. I mean, I went up there. The funny thing is going on to that show, you have all these people. There's like 135 people, so I got chosen out of like 75,000 to be one of like 600, which was pretty cool. But my story was, I think, what got me on. They had no expectations of me actually doing anything successful with it. Because I guess in the past, they've had former NFL guys go up there, but they've never been past like 2 or 3 obstacles. Like they've all fallen. And I was also the biggest competitor. Like most guys are like, $150, $170 max. And I was coming at 225. So I'm already heavier and like bigger. So I ended up becoming the 10th fastest out of 135 athletes that day. And moved on to from the qualifiers to the finals. I did fall in the finals, didn't make it to Vegas, but I'm coming back this next year to see if I can go farther.
Awesome stuff. And I want to say hi to Sal as well, who gave a shout out to both of us. So Sal Mariano, I hope I pronounced that right. I'm always worried about that when you're seeing names quickly and trying your best. But hey, Sal, nice to see you again. It's been a while. So Anthony, I wanted to dive into now the quote that you share with us in the book. So the new book, The Book of Why and How. So I'm going to actually read Anthony's quote. I'm looking at it on a different screen. That's the only time I'll be shifting screens here. But Anthony's quote was, there are 2 types of people in this world, those that work and those that watch them work. I don't mind the audience. And so, Anthony, I'd love to delve into that quote. To me, it all comes back to the idea of taking action, being a leader or a follower. We get to make that choice. And I remember this quote I heard years ago, too. There's 3 types of people in the world, I think I heard, and it was those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. Yeah. And so that's same type of feel, if you will. So I guess, Anthony, my question out of all that, when it comes to that quote, you talked about that pivotal moment in your life where you made the switch and you made the decision. Was that one of those moments where you kind of lived out that quote that you shared? And I guess, what does this quote overall mean to you?
Well, there's a lot of things I think the quote means to me. And I think one of the biggest pieces is you have to realize anything you want in life is going to take work. And some people are like, I'm not all for the hustle. And, if you look at guys like a Gary Vee, who's like, I hustle all day long. It depends on who you talk to. And I think that work is work, but some of it you love, some of it you don't love. And what ends up happening is if you don't love the work, or you don't find a way to fall in love with the work, you end up being a person that sits back and watches other people work and succeed and get what they want out of life. And then what happens is you become the person watching or the person doing. And I think for me in my life, if you want to, kind of take it to the roots of what this quote means, it's essentially you're going to have to either be the person that is being watched, the person that's watching, but you can't be both. And if you want something out of your life, you're going to have to be able to be the person that's watched. And then that's why I say bow for your audience. Like, let them see you working and take some, it's like a level to the respect of saying I'm working, but I'm not being condescending or rude to my audience. It's showing respect back to those watching, because the truth is, for me, like, I work and I have people watching me, but I'm not trying to say I'm doing this, you can't. I'm trying to say, look, I show you respect. Come up here with me. Like, you can also come and do this work. So there's a lot of different levels within that quote.
And so here's the question behind the question is, why do you think so many people struggle being a watcher rather than being the person that's doing the work? Like, why do you think people struggle with that, taking action or being a leader or pushing the envelope?
Man, so my whole company is called Trust Your Hustle. Actually, behind my head is my Trust Your Hustle success grid. And it's like this change matrix that I've created. And really what it is I find that what it hinders a lot of people's lack of trust. That's it. Like, and trust is a big word if we break it down, because trust is this thing that you look at the rest of the world. The rest of the world tells us you're missing something. You're not smart enough, not good enough. You need this to be great and whatever it is. But really, at the end of the day, we do know there's a lot inside of us already. We just have no idea how to pull it out, or it's there. We know it's there. We just don't trust our ability to put it into the world and make something happen with it. And so what happens is a lot of people fail to even take the first step, to climb the mountain, because they don't think they can get to the top of the mountain. And the reason they don't is because somewhere in their past or somewhere they have, lacked progress has told them they're not smart enough, not good enough, not capable. So what they choose to do is just sit back on their haunches and wait, hoping that all of a sudden something happens. And then really what happens is life just passes us by. And so for me, I think the biggest thing that I want people to grab and kind of pull from me as I go through the life of what it is I do is that the only way to build like that trust in yourself is to do like what you really don't want to do in the moment that you have to do. What I mean by that is some people, they have these problems in life they pick up, or they have these roadblocks. And what they do is they spend 95% of their time thinking about this thing and 5% of their time possibly doing something to move out of that place. And so we sit here and we worry about it, we stew on it, whereas you should flip it and say, I'm going to spend 95% of my time working on a way to get out of this, 5% of my time worrying about it. the thing is, it's not a good feeling, because when, like, say for example, like you just broke up with somebody, that's the worst time to get back out. Like, you don't want to do anything, right? Like, you don't want to get out of the house, you don't want to go do anything. And what happens? Friend comes over, they grab your hand, they pull you out of the house, we're gonna go do something fun, right? That friend simply said, it's still gonna be going on, we're gonna go do something about it though. The problem is a lot of us internalize our problems, don't talk about them. So now we spend more time just dealing with a problem that we should be able to move past, but we haven't got to the point of realizing that the moment that you need to move is the moment that you don't feel at all like moving.
Anthony, when you said that, this is something that spoke to me about the idea of where we put our focus. And I don't know if you ever heard back in the day, I'll say back in the day, he's still crushing it now, but Tony Robbins had the Personal Power, I think was the one that I was listening to at the time. And he talked about, and he shared this, and I don't know why it stuck with me. You know how you listen, that was a 12, at the time I think it was cassette, 12 cassette deck, but it was double-sided, and I think there was 2 tapes in each cassette thing. So it was like, I guess 48 or something, half-hour blocks. And out of all of that, the one that stuck out in my mind was similar to what you just said, was he said, if we could just get the world, like 90% of the world focusing on the solution and only 10% focusing on problems, we could dramatically improve and change and transform the entire world. Yeah. And I think it goes back to what you said about, are you focusing on the problem or are you focusing on the solution? And the truth is, focusing on the problem may help you avoid the problem in the future, but it very seldom makes the problem go away quickly. You're still stuck in the problem. So is that also a summary of it, that if we could just switch from focusing on the problem mostly to mostly focusing on the solution, is that really as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big piece of it, but I think the problem is also most people, they sit back and because they lack this trust, what they realize is, well, I've focused on the solution in the past and I still faltered, so why focus on the solution? And they go right back in that negative cycle and they sit back where they're at. And it's a tough space to be. And I think at those moments, what you do is realize, yeah, okay, I need to focus on the solution. But what we do is we start to think that maybe we can figure it out on our own. And typically we got what we got because of the tools we already have. And this is where I'm real big on like seeking help and finding resources and finding coaches or reading books and getting more information, because what happens is you're only going to be able to push yourself motivationally to a point that you already know. The only way to get past that is to learn something you don't know. And really, I think if people can get to that mindset of saying, okay, cool, I'm going to focus on a solution. I'm going to find a way to get past this, but I need help. They can seek a little bit more help. It's not saying you're bad or wrong, because there's things that I'm phenomenal at. There's things that I suck at. But my ego, if I let it subside enough, I'll be able to give myself permission to get better in some area. And that's where you got to start moving. It's like saying, hey, I'm not the greatest at this. I need some help. Like, I'm going to focus on a solution. I need someone to help me. So I call a friend. I find a coach. I find some courses, some programs, I read books. Like, I try to push myself. Even now, as a man that coaches other people, I'm trying to find my weak points, and then I want to find out how I can get better at them. And that's pretty much how I think life should be lived, whether it's business or whether it's personal or whatever it may be, is trying to find ways to look at the solution. And if you don't know the answer, don't tuck back again. Find someone who does know the answer and use their solution.
So Anthony, I'd love to know how you juggle it all, because you mentioned something key there. And I mean, that's a big question, because we could talk about juggling your time, your life, what have you. But you mentioned learning. So I want to focus on that for a second. Yeah. You mentioned juggling it, and in terms of, well, I guess I'm diving into the juggling it side, but you mentioned the idea of being a continual learner. And we've learned in our interviews, 4,000 plus high achievers now, that the second most common trait is that lifelong learners are leaders. The people that keep beating their minds are the ones that grow and stay at the top. But here's my question. The new challenge becomes, we're bombarded with information now. Yeah. So my question when I ask about juggling it all is, how do you make sure that you're feeding your mind, feeding yourself the wisdom, what have you, but not getting lost and stuck in the information, if that's a fair question?
Yeah, so this is going to be probably I'm going to take this big and then I'm going to come tight with it. So I think the first thing we have to do is set our own internal scale. I think a lot of people don't comprehend. Hey, thank you, Ashley. A lot of people don't comprehend that they're traveling and moving through this world with a shifted, crazy scale, which is the world scale. So what they're doing is they're saying, well, someone said to read this book, and someone said I should go see this video, or someone said I should learn this, right? And so what happens is we're saying, well, I'm going to follow the world scale. And every time somebody else in the world says to do something, I'm going to go learn that information. Now what happens is now we get this negative feel for information because the information we got wasn't helping us, or we didn't care about it. And so the first thing to do is set a scale, like trash everything, say what is great in my life, what I want to be great, what I want to accomplish, and then what information do I need to be able to get that done. And then now what happens is all the information you start to gather becomes stuff you actually enjoy and you love. So you get this flip-flop of not just disproving of the information, but you love what you learn and you can use what you learn, and now it like fires you up. So the first piece is find out what information is going to be useful to you in your life, because if it's not worth doing. The second piece of it, when it comes to being a lifelong learner, is learning takes place, I think, in like two places. One is going to be like your tactical, like I'm going to go take a course, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to go and read something, I'm going to make sure I'm learning. Another part of it is just stopping for a moment and listening to what just happened in your life in that moment, or seeing it differently. Like I do a thing called a nightly 90 every single night. Yesterday was 1,000 straight days. And all I do every night is I seriously I stop and think about my life. What did I experience today? What can I learn? What's in this room? Like, what's something I can see for a second and say, okay, this conversation taught me this, or, I saw this in this interaction with somebody, or I saw this person do this crazy thing. Why would they do that? Oh, maybe this is why. And I just have a conversation externally about that, but internally at the same time. And I learn that way. And I think if you can find ways to do that, it's great. And then another part of just learning is you have to set aside a time. Like if you don't put time, like I guess, aside to get things in your life done, then it's never going to get done. There's a lot of people that have great intentions. They say, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And so being very, very structured with how your day rolls, how your life operates, which this is not new. Everybody knows this. This is the crazy part. Everybody knows they should have some routine, but because we're such creatures of routine, we don't want to break the routine and make a better routine. It's super weird, but as humans, we'll sit back and say, I need to change my habits, I need to get better routines, but they do the exact same thing because there's no desire to change, but if you don't change, nothing changes. And so I think a lot of people have to sit back and say, okay, what do I have to change in just in terms of how I live and operate my day so I can get things put in that I like and move things away from that I don't like, which may be wasted time or inability to do something, or just, people taking our time, because people don't realize that the biggest suckers of your time are other people. And you give them that ability by answering their questions or answering your phone every time it calls, or like talking to somebody every moment that they want to talk to you. And it's nothing like, I'm not saying people are bad, like you don't talk to people, but I'm saying be selective, because if you don't, people are going to tell you what to do with your time by taking it.
So, and the nightly 90, yeah. I think I got that right. Is that 90 minutes, 90 seconds, or where's the 90 coming?
Oh, I couldn't do 90 minutes. No, it's 90 seconds. Last night's was 1,000. It was like 6 minutes of me kind of recapping my journey and my story, my life. But typically it's around 90 seconds.
I only ask that because somebody listening in, if I don't clarify that, they might be sitting there going 90 minutes a night. I don't know if I can do that, and trying to do it and then maybe tapping out. So I'd rather at least let them go in with the right intention.
Yeah.
So I guess then the other thing I'm curious to learn about, Anthony, we talk about that quote, the idea of are you watching or are you doing? And swing back for a minute to the NFL, because so many people that's a dream to them, and it's always been a dream, like being a rock star. The NFL, there's certain areas that people just would love to achieve that. My question, because something you said that was really interesting, Anthony, that I'm not sure if everybody caught, but when you said that at that pivotal point you were struggling with it, you weren't getting certain areas that people just would love. I think I'm going in an echo here. But yeah, you were struggling with a certain area, and you weren't doing that well in football, and then a switch happened. And so can you talk a minute about the, I call it the untalent factor, but there's obviously a talent factor that's involved, but there has to be a component that allows you to go from not, let's say struggling with football to making it to the NFL, because people automatically think you have to just be born with it. So can you talk?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, that just puts away, there are in every NFL team, there are a couple guys you're like, how in the world are they still here? And literally, like every time everyone's like, how's this guy legit? Hey, Emily, how's this guy still playing? And what it is people, they hear it. I think we're really close to greatness. As people, we are always surrounded by the clues, like we're surrounded by the information. It's always floating around us. But for some reason, people, they want to find a shortcut to the same process someone's telling them to take. And so here's what I learned early on was like, you have to work, period. Like the game of football is no different than the game of life. One of my coaches with the Redskins told me, and it was something like it took years to figure out, but he put it in my head. He says, look, I don't care how fast you are. I don't care what college you went to. If you produce, you will stay. That's it. And the thing I think is when he says produce, he's saying produce in football, tackles and catches, whatever it might be, right? But it's the same thing for life. If you have to do whatever that thing you need to be, to be done, if you do it, like you'll stay. And no matter where, if you deliver great value, you'll stay. If you are a great husband, your wife will stay. Like things will be great. And so what happens is that's not stuff that happens by accident. Every day we need motivation. There's days we're highly motivated and we wake up and we're like, I don't want to do that today, right? those are the moments where some people they'll live in that place of being, not feeling like doing something they won't, or some wake up and say, damn it, it doesn't matter how I feel, I'm going to get this done today. It's got to be an obligation for your life. And so when it comes to the game of football, I got there I was just hungry to succeed, and I let that hunger drive me even when I didn't feel like doing it. There's days I didn't feel like working out. There's days I didn't feel like getting up in the morning and going at 5 a.m. to run in the freezing cold in Oregon. When I was training to go to the Buccaneers for my college team to go over to the pros, I didn't actually have a team to train with. I wasn't able to go to the actual pro team because I hadn't graduated. I'd do every single workout by myself at the University of Oregon. I had a SpongeBob stopwatch. When that thing said to run, I ran. When it said to take a break, I took a break. But like I lived and died by that thing, and I lost it years ago, which sucked. But that was like one of those moments that just ingrained me to have this concept of you have to learn to work when you don't feel like working. And I showed up to that team like I was in one of the best shapes that coach said he'd ever seen somebody who didn't play and train there. And it's because I just worked. And so that's more of like a mindset thing, and it's nothing to do with my pure talents, whatever was there. That's part of it. Don't be wrong. There's certain things we're talented at, but at a certain point, literally talent just stops, because you're only going to go right to where you're at. And at that point, it's those who have mastered specific traits, specific skill sets. Because even in football, people don't realize football, it's not just how fast you are, how strong you are. I could be the fastest guy in the field, but if the ball is snapped and I run 7 steps the wrong way and a slow guy runs 2 steps the right direction, he's 9 steps ahead of me. Doesn't matter what athleticism it is. And the only difference there is what film. Did I watch enough film? Did I know this team? Did I see my keys? Was I paying attention? And that's stuff you can look at in any area of your life. Are you watching the things that you need to watch? Are you paying attention to what you should be paying attention to? Are you making good decisions? And that will take you closer or farther away from your goal, no matter what your talent level is. And so when I say some guys like, why would they be on a team? That's looking at them athletically. The moment you sit back and watch how their brain works, you're like, dang, now I see why this guy is here. And that's why they succeed. So wherever you're at in life, if you just start being hungry for knowledge and consuming what you can, you'll separate yourself. And it may not happen fast. I think we're in a world nowadays, we want this instant gratification. I want to know my solution now. I want to know when I'm going to get this. And I'm telling you, you're never going to know for sure. You got to enjoy the journey more than the destination. But if you put the time into loving the journey, and your journey is one of work and something that you desire to do, push in the right direction, one day you'll wake up and it'll almost be like an overnight shift. It'll be like, how in the world did I get here? Because you just fell in love with the journey and it all naturally flowed.
So amazing stuff there, Anthony. I have to say, I spoke to a friend of mine. His name is Doug Shepard. He's an elite skating coach. So he helps NHL players with their skating. And so Sidney Crosby went through their program. Actually, Sidney started there when he was like 9. So they trained him from the ground, I guess you could say up. And then also Brad Richards went through the program. And I asked him and Alan Andrews, the guy who started the school, about this untalent factor, because they're dealing with people that could be NHL players and may not be NHL players every day. And what they told me is that they've watched people that from early on, scouts and everybody else, that they'll never make the NHL, but they had those other elements you talked about, and they ended up making the NHL and having productive years. And they watched people that they said early on, that kid is going places, who never went anywhere. And I think that just backs up what you said, is that, he told me, he said, there's people, Corey, I could tell you that they probably didn't even belong in the NHL, but nobody could tell them that. They still made the NHL. Yeah. And I think that backs it up. And then also the other thing that came to my mind is a weird analogy, but Brock Lesnar, the guy that was a wrestler, like a Olympic wrestler, or not Olympic, but school wrestling. Then he went to the professional wrestling world. But then you probably seen that he went and tried out for football with no background, no business making it, and he actually made it through all the cuts. He was on the bench. He didn't play a lot, but then he went to the UFC and became the world champion. There has to be something there that's not just this guy's talented. He must have learned something that he could apply at each of those professions, because those are all completely separate professions, even if they're all linked.
Yeah, it's not just physical. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, Brock Lesnar's a big dude, so it's like basketball. I can't play in the NBA. I'm only 6'1". Like, this guy, there's a certain level there. But if you think about it, I think society, we picture greatness as being only the things we see on TV. I think that there's a huge separation. Like, when I got done with the NFL, one of the biggest things that I sat back and realized was life is not just sports. I am not just a football player. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a coach. I'm so much more than that. And I think societally we figure, well, if we're not being seen on ESPN, we're not being shown on these massive TV things, we're not making USA Today, we're not doing great. But honestly, great is one, it's relevant. It's irrelevant to what everybody else thinks, and it's also relative to people. But I also realize that, like, that is it's a mental construct, is what he used. He just simply sat back and said, I'm gonna be great at these things. He happened to be doing things that we saw on TV, so we see it up here. But it's like, dude, if you take the same mindset, you said, I want you to be a great painter, I'm pretty sure you can probably be a great painter, right? And if you want to be a great dad, like I'm gonna be the best dad ever. Like we could do that. But I think sometimes people don't give themselves enough credit to realize that your level of great is whatever your level of great is supposed to be, and just own that. Have great pride in whatever that greatness is, and realize that the way you get great is by doing the same thing he probably did, which is have that mindset and put the work in. And again, it's going to be at that point where you're doing it before you know you're going to be successful at it. He didn't know he'd make the team. He didn't know he would get through final cuts, but I'm sure he didn't go out there with that mindset of like, I'm just going to kind of do the work if I know I'm going to make it. Which is how most people work. They're like, well, if I know I'm going to be able to do this, then I'll put the work in. Well, I guarantee you're not going to make it, because that's going to be read in every body movement, every speech, and everything you talk about. We're going to feel that. So you have to live it as though you already are there.
You know, it's funny as we wind down, Anthony, and there's never enough time, but something you said there reminds me of passion. And I wanted to ask you about that, since our radio show at least called Conversations with Passion. But I hear that a lot when I deliver talks where people will say, I get a question. How can I chase my passion and quit my job tomorrow and start making money from my passion tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera? And in my opinion, you're asking the wrong question. If your sole focus is how do I make money from my passion, it's probably not your passion. But my question out of that, Anthony, is how important do you think it is for a person to discover their passion? And if you think it's important, why is that?
Well, I think I think people are looking for is purpose more than passion. In my mindset, in my experience, I think we all want to know what we're here for. That's a humongous thing. Like there's that statement that says, there's the two most important days of your life is the moment you're born and the moment you know why, right? So I think for me, what I think is the passion piece is sometimes people will chase these passions that they don't know why they should, or they don't chase the passion, but they're looking for the purpose. And along your life journey, you're going to find something that's going to be able to make you wake up and enjoy the day. And I think for me, life is people ask what's life about. I think life is a collection of experiences. We want to have more good ones than bad ones. It's pretty much how I look at my entire world. Like, is this a good experience or a bad experience? I want to have more of the good ones. And when it comes to the passion piece, I don't know if you can all of a sudden have this, passion that's going to help you get paid tomorrow. And I think that might be the wrong perspective. But if you're looking to chase a passion of yours, let your current situation, current job, current career be a financial investor in your future passion. So what you got to do is say, okay, what really is it? If I was to say, I want to chase my passion, what are you saying you're trying to do? What you're trying to do is find a way to survive and live off of doing something you love, right? So the first piece of that is live means to provide money. I got to pay my rent. I got to feed myself. I got to pay my car note, whatever. I got to take care of insurance, right? It's got to be paid. Well, if I have this thing I'm chasing passion, yeah, it'd be nice to have this pay for it all. But what if this thing I'm already doing can pay for that? Well, I'm still trying to do this. And what you do is you start saying, I want to shift and have this fund this a little bit by taking time here and allocating it to build this passion piece. So there's a great quote by Robbins. He says, the time that ordinary people waste, extraordinary people leverage. So what he's saying is, like, if you want to have something extraordinary in your life, you got to be extraordinary, which means you have to do extraordinary, especially with your time. So when you come home and you have this thing you're doing, you're like, I hate my job. Don't come home and sit on the couch and watch a whole bunch of episodes of whatever TV show you have. Don't go out and drink with your buddies, your girlfriends. Like, that's not going to get you where you want to be. So be very, very smart with your time and allocate it in the right direction. So now you can say, okay, little by little, I'm going to chunk away at this thing that I love doing, little by little. And I'm going to make a little bit of money and see if I can fine tune that. And then at some point, we'll get to this cusp. And the cusp is going to be this point to where you're making some money. And the only thing separating you from making all your money doing your passion and not is time. And at that point, it becomes this huge decision. Like, okay, well, if I take the time away from this job thing I'm doing, I hate, and I can move it to something I love doing, that's the only thing necessary. Like, I just need to be able to, make more hours for my schedule. I'm too full of my schedule, or I need to make more videos, whatever it is. If you realize that's your hindrance point, now you got to take a leap and put your time into it and see it grow from there. But at that moment, you have to take a risk, because it means I'm dropping some income to build it back up. But a lot of people are like, well, how can I quit my job tomorrow? You can't. Like, I'm sorry, unless you win the lottery, it's going to be incredibly difficult. and it's going to be a different world for you. So what I would say is, if people are chasing their passions, let your current situation invest in your future passion, but start your passion now. Start it small, start building it. You don't got to have everything every other person has. You just need to serve people and do it really well. And you'll find out how to do it better. You'll grow from there.
So Anthony, Ashley mentioned or asked, I guess it's sort of a question, sort of a comment. She said, I hope you're in the public speaking niche, Anthony. I could listen to you all day. And so I think I can confirm that Anthony certainly spends his time speaking to audiences. Yeah,
I do. I travel. I'm a speaker. Actually, I have a speech on Monday. I have one I'm doing tomorrow digitally, and then I have a few next month too. Yeah, I travel and speak. Yeah, I enjoy doing it. It's part of what I love to do. Get back and talk.
Awesome. And it shows. Anthony, my last official question, and then I'm simply going to ask you how we can learn more and connect with you further. But my last official question is simply, if you could give, and I asked this question on our radio show as well, so I got to ask it here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you could give a younger version of Anthony Trucks some advice, maybe going back, it could even be back to that 6-year-old when you talked about him and the stuff he was going through. But if you could give a younger version of yourself, you pick the timeline, some of life advice based on what you've learned in the years since, what do you think you might tell him?
Man, it's interesting because for me, I have always been a person that's always just shifted and changed. I think when I grew up as a foster kid, like I really had to survive, and survival meant I wasn't going to die. And when I realized that little thing at a young age, like I could do whatever, I'm not going to die, I'd chase a bunch of stuff. I think the biggest thing I would go back and tell myself at a young age is you're not small. Like I think for a lot of years, I told myself I was small, like I didn't matter. I was just this foster kid. I didn't belong in this world. I didn't have the same mom and dad everybody else had. I didn't have the same silver spoon as some kids I was around. And I had this really internal thought of I'm small. And the thing is crazy is there's moments where even as a grown man in the success I've had, I still have that little thought. And I think a lot of us have that thought is I'm not big enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know these things. I'm not as good as so-and-so. And as much as we know that this happens and we hear this every single day, people talk about the fact that, you're bigger, you're greater than you believe. We never really embrace that. Like a lot of people really never sit back and say, I'm not small. Like I have something in me. And the moment you own that, like the big shift for people is they want to wait until someone sees that they're big to get big. But the problem is no one's going to believe what you don't believe. And so the moment you have this shift that says, damn it, I'm good, I'm great. Like I could do this, like I'm big enough. That's the one thing you have to have for the other person to look at you and be like, well, if they believe it, maybe I should, maybe they are great, right? And that's how that takes place in roles. But if you don't first set that turn, like and go, it's never going to happen. Lisa Nichols, she's a speaker also, she had a statement that says, you have to set an example for how other people will treat you. And she says it in a way of like, negativity. Don't let them talk to you bad. If you talk to yourself bad, they will too. But I think the same thing happens reverses. Set the tone for people to treat you great by treating yourself as if you're great, because you are in some way. Find it, dig into it, and push from there.
I love that, what you just said, that statement. Nobody's going to, and I'm paraphrasing now already, but nobody's going to believe what you don't believe.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to believe what you don't believe. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but that was, wow, profound. So, Anthony, I said my last the unofficial question, but my very last question was going to be, how can we connect and learn more? So people that have been watching, listening, people that will watch and listen, as you know, a lot of people end up tuning in after the live is over. So where would you normally direct them or send them if they want to reach out to you, follow you, learn more, all that kind of great stuff? Well,
to kind of get into my ecosystem of how I share and teach is you just go to my Facebook or Instagram. And so if you go to Facebook, it's Anthony Trucks. Instagram's at Anthony Trucks. What I direct people to is to go to trustyourhustle.com and take the Thrive quiz. So I found there's 4 different types of people. And once you figure out which one you are, it tells you kind of more about yourself and how to be able to push into the area you want to be. Like for me, I teach people to go from dreaming to doing, both from a mental standpoint and a tactical standpoint, from like the business aspect of creating something cool for the world. And so for me, I have to know where you're at. So do you. And once you know what that Thrive type is, you can push forward pretty well from there. So trustyourhustle.com or at Anthony Trucks at either Instagram or Facebook.
Awesome stuff. Well, Anthony Trucks, this has been an absolute pleasure. I already knew it would be. We've done interviews in the past, so I knew it was going to be fantastic. Thank you so much. Anthony, as I mentioned, is in the new book, The Book of Why and How. So if people want to check out the book, it's at thebookofwhy.com. My goal here is to share insight and hopefully change some lives. And as Anthony said, impact people so they can impact people and share great voices like Anthony. So it's not really about promoting the book, but I figure the book is a good starting point because, Anthony, you do have such a great quote in the book, and you're in the book alongside so many other thought leaders sharing amazing insight as well. So thank you for sharing a glimpse of that today. I'll call it to be continued because I know we barely scratched the surface, and I'm sure you and I could have chats, half-hour chats for, monthly for the rest of our lives and not run out of stuff to talk about. So thank you so much for being so gracious today, and I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll continue to wave the flag for all the good stuff you're doing.
Appreciate it. Very welcome. Great talking to you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Awesome. I was going to say the same. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for all the comments. And once again, Anthony, we'll reach back out and bring you back on in the future.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.